Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of what was going to be a 3-part series, but I've now decided to make a 4-part series on changing the tire on a BMW 2017 R1200R. What we've got here is my homemade tire warmer, which is basically just a little ceramic heater sitting inside of the tire, and I constantly keep rotating it. Now what I've learned out of this is it works really good, maybe a little too good. So if you're going to try this, you got to stay on top of it, because I believe you could easily damage the tire. That's a lot of heat coming out in a big hurry. So also, I take this opportunity to kind of look at what's going on with the bike. I'm going to need new rear pads here sometime soon, but I want to go ahead and kind of give the rotor a once over. Everything's looking pretty good. Nothing obvious that I see. Just taking a look at my exhaust damper there. The wheel is good and cleaned up now. I just gave it a little bath, which you've got to be really careful with the TPMS out in the open. You can see I had a little water on it right there. Get that off. The drop must have run down. So I just check it over good. My wheel's got a little bang here from where somebody put the weights on. I don't know what happened there. Somebody put the weights on funky some reason one time before, but anyway. All right, so we're going to get this tire off of the heater and get some zip ties on it and see if we can get this tire on the wheel. So again, this is my homemade little setup. I keep it on my fatigue mat. I think the concrete robs the heat a little quicker than the rubber mat does. I'm going to let it warm up there just a little bit longer. I kind of rotate it on the quarters, and you can feel the tire. You can feel the heat in the tire. It works really good. Like I say, maybe a little too good. And then the first thing we got to do is get zip ties on this and try to get the tire, the beads of the tire pulled together. So I'm going to set my camera up over here, and we're going to get into this. Alright guys, so I've got the tire warm. I've at least knocked the chill off of it because it is wintertime outside. And I've got some of the 24-inch heavy-duty cable ties from Harbor Freight. And you need somewhere around 5 or 6 of the cable ties to do this. And you just got to do little bites at a time here. I try to do it fairly quickly while the tire is warm. So just want to run a zip tie through and start tightening it up. You want to keep the little buckle out here on the top of the tire. So as I do this, I'm going to start pushing the bead together and then tightening the zip tie. What I've learned is as I work my way around, I can go back and get this tighter and tighter. So again, I'm going to try to do this with 5. Other thing you can do is you can reuse these zip ties if you want. You can open them with a screwdriver once you get the tire mounted, or you can cut them off, whichever is easiest. Definitely easier to cut them off, but save a little bit of money, I guess, next time you did it. Although a pack of 10 is like $1, so this is ridiculously cheap. These wire ties don't cost much of anything. What I'm finding with this tire is because it's a little wider tire, I may have to put a few more zip ties on than what I would do with the front tire. So here we're closing in on 4 right now. We may come back and put 6 or 7. So again, I want the buckle out here on the outside so that when I cut these off, they're not caught inside of the wheel. So you got to pay attention to that because that will bite you here shortly. All right, so what I'm trying to do is get this bead pulled together so that I can set the tire in the drop center of the wheel, because that's the key to getting the tire mounted on the wheel. Because the tire is and the wheel is bigger diameter than the tire, so you've got to find a space to get it on, and that's the trick, is to use the drop center. So I'll show you exactly what I mean here in just a second. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put another, maybe not, let's see if I can pull this one out a little tighter. Wanted this one to move over a little bit, and I couldn't quite get it to move over, but maybe now that I tighten this other one up I can. Let's see here. Go ahead and tighten this one up. So again, The trick to this, as I was saying, is just little bites. Don't get in a hurry. Just do a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, all the way around. And this is the hard part. This is where you're fighting it versus fighting it going on the wheel. So take your time, get it right. All right, I think I do want, I'm gonna go ahead and, I've got another pack here. I'm gonna go ahead, since I have them, I think I might even put another couple wire ties on here. I really want to get this in. Like I say, this, I've not had the best of luck with this rear tire in the past. It has beaten me up getting it on the wheel. And I've done this zip tie method. If you've watched my videos, you've seen me do this on the front tire, but I've never done it on the rear tire. And what I'm trying to do, bring these two beads right here together. We're gonna go ahead and put one more on here. Maybe even another one. It's got a little bit of a gap there. This tire's a little stiffer than the front tire. So again, I'm being really careful to keep my buckle outside here. Mashing the beads in there close together as I can get them. And some of these, you see right there, that last one, man, that tightened on down. They're almost touching. I think I'm gonna put one more right here. And I may actually try to save these this time. I'll try to save a couple and see how that goes, how much time and effort that's taken to save my wire ties. There we go, guys. We're getting that bead down there really nicely. Just a little bit at a time, little bites, just like taking it off with the spoons. Looking pretty good. Okay, I think I'm going to try it here. Now, another thing you want to do is leave enough of a gap somewhere in this that the TPMS can fit in there. So when I put this on the bike, I'm going to initially put the TPMS in there. Then I'm going to rotate the yellow dot to the valve stem. Now, before we put this on, it's also super important to make sure we've got the rotation right. So the tire is marked with an arrow, and I've got to find it. Here's my arrow, and my wheel is marked with an arrow. So would be the opposite. I gotta flip it, and the downside to that is the yellow dot is now on the back side from where my valve stem is. So I'm gonna take a piece of chalk, and I'll use this chalk again later. I'm gonna go ahead and mark my yellow dot on both sides of my tire here. At least fairly close. Makes it a little easier lining it up. And I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, for now, I'm going to put this gap on the TPMS, but then when I move this, we'll fix that. So I'm going to start opposite the TPMS. And number one thing, lubricant is your friend, but not too much. Because now if we get it inside the wheel, it's a little harder to clean out. So we get a little lubricant on there. Go ahead and we'll put some on my glove and kind of get it on the wheel. I've got the Nomar paste, so I could actually use the paste too if I wanted, but let's just get a little bit on the wheel there. Make sure again we got our rotation right, which we do. Here, get my gap lined up with my TPMS, which is here. And part of this is going to drop on really easy, but the trick is to make it all drop on really easy, and that's where this gets a little tougher. Okay, now I'm going to back up for a second. Let's look at something before I do this. So here, I'm going to ring this up to the camera. This is the drop center. This is where the bead's going to seat up against here, but this is the drop center. This is where the tire is going to ride. But this little cutout right here, and every wheel's got it, that's where you've got to get the tire to get it pulled up on the opposite side. So the tire over here has got to be in the drop center for this side to get on. So I want to get it in the drop center and pull it over tight, which I've done pretty good. And now, got to work her down. And this is not easy. It's a little work every time. And I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a little more lubricant. Never hurts. Well, too much is not a good thing, I guess. And let's see if we can get this on down in there. Okay, so I'm going to take one of my rim protectors here and slide it in up here at the top where I'm close. And I'm going to use my new bead breaker tool because it's long. I can get a little more leverage. Slide that spoon in there. See if I can push this down. I'm going to help it with my knee right here. Doesn't quite want to go, so I'm going to back up here a little bit, get a smaller bite. Right there. The spoon in here. There we go. Little bites. That's the trick. Little bites, little bites. Don't rush. Just take your time. Pull my guard off, my shield, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to get it in over here. Now I got a wire tie right in my way to where exactly I'd want to be, but I think I got enough here to kind of get around. Yep, here we go. I'm going to melt that on down in there a little bit if I can. All right, I'm going to put my shield in again. I'm getting close, so there's not a lot of room for the shield or the spoon. Got it in here. All right, let's push this on down. Nice, look at that. All right, we're going now. This is a part where this always, and historically, has always been tough for me to make things happen. So you get right down to the bitter end and you think you're there and you're not quite there. But patience and bigger spoons is what I'm gonna try. So I got my shield in, I'm on here. See if we can, I'll be back over here. There we go. Guys, I'm telling you, this already, there it is, we're on. That is by far, 100% by far, much easier to get that wheel on. I have fought and fought and fought that before, and there we go, we are on. We are on. So now, I find my little chalk mark, which came off in the process. And I got the yellow dot on the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and find my yellow dot. Let's see here, where's my yellow dot? Here's my yellow dot right here. I'm going to line my valve stem up with the yellow dot. See, look at this, you can move the wheel around inside the tire. That's crazy about this. Say that now, I can't move it around because of the TPMS catching on a wire tie. But we'll just get down here and move that over top of the TPMS. There we go. I think that got it. I'll be careful. I don't want to tear that TPMS up. There it is. And where's my yellow dot? I lost my yellow dot again. Here's my yellow dot up here. So I'm coming up there, and we are lined up dead on with the yellow dot. There we go, right there. Now, because of how I put these wire ties on, I'm going to flip this over this way. I'm going to make sure I'm lined up. And I am. TPMS actually went up inside of the tire. I'm going to take a little screwdriver here and see if I can release these wire ties. And if I can't, then I'm just going to cut them off. Now, I don't want them to stay on here too long because this will deform the tire and make it take a little bit of a set. And if you do that, it's going to be that much harder to seat the bead when the time comes. So let's come on back up here for a second. This is already a little more tricky than I thought, so we may be giving up on. I thought I'd be able to just pop a screwdriver right in behind it. Try a little different screwdriver, and then we're going to start cutting wire ties. All right, one of these two is going to work. I got a little tiny flat blade screwdriver and a big pair of cutting dikes. So if I can't take the ties off, we're just cutting them. Not wasting around any time. I actually am down to the end of getting my inspection, which is why I had to change this tire. Inspection is due. Yeah, I have typically had good success removing a wire tie like this, but this is not. Well, there we go. As soon as I say that, here we go. I need to make myself a little shim. All right, so anybody who is worried about the cost of the wire ties, problem eliminated. Again, I'm going to make sure my yellow dot, and it is, because this tire will move around so freely right now. You could easily, there we go. Yep, that was the trick. Just need the right size screwdriver. Yep, this works great right here. Maybe actually easier than cutting them off, to be honest with you. Once we got this on here, we're going to make darn sure my TPMS is good. Got a little lubricant inside of the wheel I'm going to clean out. Then we're going to try to get the bead set. And then the tire balanced. Tire mounted, and run to the motorcycle shop. Try to get there before they close. This is the last day they're open for 2023. And my bike inspection is due December, so I really want to make it there in time. But timing worked out so that I'm down to the last minute. So here you go. It is what it is. Here in a minute, when I turn my compressor on, it's going to be really loud. Hard for you guys to hear. Here we go. The tire's kind of, see it sort of flexing itself back out a little bit. A couple of spots here holding a little bit of a set. My yellow dot moved on me a little bit. Not much. We're pretty close. I would have preferred it be over dead on the money, but it's not. But let's see if we can bump the tire on out to where it looks closer to how it's going to look. Looking pretty good right about there. And like I say, my yellow dot slid on me a little bit. Should have been a little more careful on those last couple, but we're really close. We're close enough. All right, so now the next thing is to get air in here and seat this without overdoing it. So I have made a special chuck to do this that will inflate this with no needle in it. So I've made a special tool to help me inflate the tire. Went to Harbor Freight, bought a gauge set up, and I pulled the little center part out here that presses the needle down, because it would not work without a needle or a core being in the valve. So this lets me inflate the tire without a valve core. So I'm going to fire the compressor up. It gets really loud. Then we're going to seat this tire. You know when that tire seats, because it goes pop, pop really loud. There is no doubt when you've seated the tire. So stand by. We got quite a mess today. I usually like to work a lot neater. So I'm going to stop here just a second before I do anything else. I think it's important to kind of clean up what I got going on here. Got a little bit of trash. I'm going to get the trash up and out of the way. Definitely going to reuse the wire ties. That worked pretty good. I don't know that you could use them multiple times, but you could definitely use them a few times. My new bead breaker tool, 100% a fan of the Bead Breaker Pro. Buy the big ones, don't buy the little ones. 100% a fan of the Bead Breaker Pro. Buy the big ones, don't buy the little ones. These work great. The little ones are a lot harder to break the bead with. All right, guys, so my air compressor's charged and I'm getting ready to seat the beads on this tire. But one of the things I want to point out that I think is important, on your tire, you should have had a big sticker like this. This one's folded in half. You need to pay attention to this. It's got some important information on it. In particular, what this says is to seat the tire bead, never exceed 57 psi for a motorcycle tire. That's really important. If you overpressurize that tire, you could force that tire to fail later unexpectedly. So pay attention to that. I'm going to make sure I don't exceed that 57 psi, which is why I made some of these tools that I showed you earlier, because it lets me pay close attention to the pressure that I'm putting in the tire. So it's also important to put a little lubricant on here before we seat the bead. So let's give this a go. All right, so the tire's pretty well ready. I can see a couple of spots here. We got a big gap. Some of it almost looks like it's seated on the bead pretty good right now. But I'm gonna put a little bit of lubricant. Again, not too much, because I don't want excess lubricant down inside the tire, but I want enough to be sure we seat the bead. And we're gonna do both sides here at the same time. So I'm gonna lube up both. Go. A little tool here locks on. And guys, this can be dangerous. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of energy here. So you want to have a plan when you're doing this to protect yourself and make sure that you've got the tire in a safe spot or even secured down. So I'm going to start laying the pressure to it. You got to be able to put air in here really fast because the tire's not seated so it leaks out. So I'm going to lay it to it, but I'm going to stop at that 57 psi if I get that high. Alright, so I'm putting the valve core back in. It always scares me every time those beads seat. You heard them pop. Went right up. The first one seated right at, I hit 57, didn't seat. I kind of waited a second there. It was just under 60 psi. I can't tell I'm exactly 57, and it popped. And then when it popped, it had leaked down enough that it was down to, I don't know, like 40. Bumped a little more air in it, hit up there about 55, and seated the second bead. So now I've got the core back in. I've got an inflator that I bought from Lowe's. I honestly don't trust the accuracy of this thing, so I'm going to use this to get my pressure up close to my 42, which is what my tires run, 36 on the front, 42 on the rear. So I'm probably going to put it at about 50 psi and then take a more accurate gauge I have and bleed it down, but it doesn't lock on. So this is just kind of a quick and dirty way to get there. And if we got any leaks, that lube is basically a soap, so it will show that we've got a leak coming through. Okay, so I'm right there at about 50 psi. Pull this off. Just gonna check the other side here, make sure we don't see anything. Looks like a leak. Everything's looking good. We'd be seeing some bubbles or something if the bead hadn't seated good. And there were little bubbles there, but I believe that's from prior to the bead seating. All right, I think we're looking pretty good, so let's set it right at our 42 psi. So I've got a gauge. You probably all have seen these, but my tire pressure gauge has a little release button here. So I can overinflate and then hit this button and bleed it down. So this works really nicely to get really accurate pressures. So right there we're about 48, so I'm just bleeding air off. Right on the money, 42 PSI. Get the cap back on here. All right, now, another word of advice. Don't do what I've done on several occasions, which is take the tire and mount it on the bike right now, because I've done that twice now. You got to balance it and then mount it on the bike. I don't know why. I get excited. I think I'm done. I mount the tire and then I'm like, what am I doing? So we're going to balance this baby up, get it mounted, and go get this bike inspected.